Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race. We are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 288 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I am excited that you are here and excited for you to meet my guest. She hasn't been on a running podcast before, and she is someone that I am really excited to get to know throughout this episode, but also it was one of those really surreal 21st century moments in the way that I got to meet her, which you will get to hear about in just a minute. But I want to tell you just a bit about my guest today. I'm excited to welcome Callan Porter-Romero on our show. Callan is an artist. You're going to get to hear about what specific kind of art she does. Some of her artwork has been on view at the De Young Museum in San Francisco. And she also has been on the Next Generation Emerging Artists exhibit. And one of her paintings was selected for the Response Online exhibit by the Carla Art Institute in Berkeley. So she's really had some impressive work that has got a lot of attention, which is really cool. She also has a very, very interesting job. And I love to dive into this a little bit with working as a flavor chemist, which is pretty cool. And running has become a big part of her life in her growth. And we talk a lot about the vulnerability of the relationship with running, how we work through it, how COVID messed it up for a lot of us. So I think this episode is going to resonate with a lot of you listening. Okay, so without any further ado, we are just going to hear from one of our sponsors. Then we'll be right to the episode with Callan. Thank you to Athletic Greens for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast and for keeping me strong and ready to take on whatever sicknesses, illnesses, bugs are in the air. I feel confident going out into the world because I have Athletic Greens. They have a product that I use literally every day, AG1. I started using it because I wanted to make myself be able to fill in the gaps that I wasn't getting with my diet. We can try as hard as we like to get ourselves optimized and really looking after those, all the critical foods and groups that we want to be getting in each and every day. But let's be honest, when I started looking at that way, trying to get in every little vitamin and every kind of food I could, that's when I started going down a path of obsessive thinking about food and just really taking that clean eating too far. I love Athletic Greens because it means I can have a supplement that tastes great. I don't have to take 27 different vitamins and pills to get myself the amount that I need each day. It's one scoop every morning and that is it. So with that one scoop of delicious Athletic Greens, you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens to help you start your day right. That special blend is going to support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, aging. All the things we need to be working well for us to reach our peak as a runner or just to maintain our life with running being a part of it. It is lifestyle friendly. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, so you don't have to worry about that being an additional sugar base in your life. It's going to support your mental clarity, your alertness. It's going to support your sleep quality and recovery. It's basically the one thing that uses all the best things. It uses the best of the best products based on the latest science and with constant product iterations and third-party testing. I have been using Athletic Greens for, I think, 3 or 4 years right now, and Athletic Greens wants to make it really easy for us to reclaim our health, arm our immune system with convenient and daily nutrition, especially now we are in the thick of flu and cold season. 1 scoop in a cup of water every day, that's it. So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is go to athleticgreens.com/Tina. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/Tina. Go take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Callan, I am so excited to welcome you to the Running for Real podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, of course. I'm super excited.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. And I should share with the listeners that our meeting was kind of random, but also very representative of our society nowadays, I suppose, that the way that we met, which was we both are in Allbirds All Good Collective. And we were both on joining a Flock Week call. I actually did 3, so I can't remember which of the 3 it was that we were both on, but we were attending an event that Allbirds was putting on. And I think you shared at the time about being a flavor chemist. And I was like, well, that sounds like the coolest thing ever. And you mentioned about being passionate about food security and enhancing accessibility. And I thought, yes, I really want to connect with this person. And I messaged you. And then we connected on social media. And then I was like, please be a runner, please be a runner. And I messaged you and said, do you happen to run by chance? And you were like, yeah, I do, not professionally, which is the response I get. Actually, should I just add 90% of the time when I ask people if they're a runner, they're like, yeah, but I'm not a professional. I'm like, that doesn't matter. I just want to know that you actually you have even been on a run once ever. And then we connected and here we are. So that's my version of the events. Would you say that was an accurate?
I'd say that was pretty accurate. Okay. Yeah, it sounds pretty reflective of what happened.
Yeah, and I love it. And so here we are talking about this. And I love there's going to be 3 main directions we're going to go into with this. Your running is obviously going to be a part of it. But I also want to go into some other areas of things that you do. I mentioned being a flavor chemist, and I think that's fascinating to learn more about and just some of the things that you are working on within your job. But also, just thinking a bit deeper beyond just it being a career and what it means. And then also what you do as, would you call it a hobby in your art?
Or would you say it's more than that at this point? A lifestyle, because it's at a point where if I don't do it, I feel physical pain. So it has to be a part of my life.
I think most runners could relate that to their running. And are you there with your running at this point, would you say as well?
I would say now, I would say before the pandemic, definitely. It became very ingrained. The pandemic definitely messed with my psyche, but I'm glad to be back into that routine. And I think one huge stress reliever, I'm sure everyone can relate to that, but also there's a lot of freedom. And that's something that you and I talked about with running. And it's nice to be able to remember that. That's always been an option.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad that you said that the pandemic kind of messed with it, because I think that has been the case for a lot of people. And there's been a lot of internal shame around that. Not that there should be, but it's, again, that world of social media where we see people who use the pandemic to do even more than they usually would. Or as you said, it becomes a stress relief, but it also can be hard to get motivated when things are going on, or, may not physically have time. And there's a lot of people that may have been able to heighten their running and get in really good shape. But then there's plenty more who have had trouble fitting it in and getting what maybe they did before. So I appreciate you sharing that. And we'll go deeper into that. But first, I want to read to you a line that I read off your website that I just would love to hear why you felt you wanted to share this right at the top of your About Me section on your website, which is, Callan is Black, Japanese, and Mexican. Her heritage has allowed her to have a well-rounded perspective on events and experiences, particularly those relevant to Oakland. I'd love to just hear why did you feel you wanted to include that right at the, as soon as people meet you, that's what you wanted to share?
Well, I'll just say that my background's very unique in the sense that I've been exposed to multiple cultures. And if you haven't visited Oakland, it kind of is a bubble because it's very, very diverse of a place. But at the same time, there's been so many changes in the last 10 years. And that's been, in a way, detrimental to the community. And so kind of putting my identity out there as a way of reclaiming that narrative that, people like me, because there's a lot of people like me in Oakland where, we're multicultural. This exchange of cultures is really critical and crucial to the community of Oakland. And so I put that out there as a way of reminding that people like me still exist in this community.
I think that's really, I appreciate the way that you shared that as well. And I think that's good to mention why. And that's the reason I ask that, is because it's, we are at a time where it can be pretty uncomfortable one way or the other, either saying something or not. But as you said, reminding people that you are here, you are multicultural. That's a beautiful and wonderful, part of who you are. But also, it's something, like you said, that's really exaggerated in somewhere like Oakland. I have been out to Oakland a few times in the last 10 years, and I can see what you're saying about there. I would love to hear, related to that. So you have this lifestyle, as you said, with art, and you very much tie that to where you are in Oakland, to the local community. I'd love to hear how that comes into that person you've become because of your background.
Yeah, of course. So the way that I've approached art has been really about exposure to, one, the way that I grew up and what I've seen while I grew up, and also to the vast amount of stories that just aren't told about these different types of experiences of growing up in this community. And so the way that I've approached art is about giving room for those stories and making people acknowledge that they exist. And what I mean by this culture exchange is the way that Oakland has evolved as a town, as a city, is because of these exchanges. And so it's really about making sure people understand how much these types of experiences, these people who may not have the voice, the ability to have a lot of power with controlling the way things are going in the city. It's really about giving them room and acknowledgement that, I see you. And so that's why a lot of my art is reflective of those types of narratives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you said to me before we started recording that has come recently. You have had artwork displayed at the De Young Museum in San Francisco, and you've also had some of your painting displayed in other exhibits around the area. But you said recently you've been working more on murals and community elements of that. So tell us a bit about also maybe go into what element of art you specifically are passionate about, and then why murals?
Yeah. Okay. Let me step back and say how I even got into art. So obviously art is so crazy of a term, because what does that even mean? But I've always been interested in art. I just didn't know, one, what that meant to me, what that meant to people like me, because my city has a history of gutting the arts program. And so my experience with art, my relationship with art has been really limited. And so I'm really passionate about accessibility to art. And so, art for a lot of people during the pandemic, maybe they always had it. Maybe it was something they worked on and got better at. And so that was kind of my reintroduction to art, was during the pandemic when I had time away from my lab and really sat down and thought about what was important to me. And so something that I had always been interested in was public art. And to get into that space can be really hard because there's a lot of, not a lot, but there can be backlash with how people approach that space.
Sure.
particularly how it might affect the community the public art is in if it's not reflective of that community. And so you want to have a good relationship with the people who are within that space, but also the people who are going to interact with that space. And so the way that I got into public art was really just reaching out to this nonprofit on Instagram. And
again, another example of today.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I reached out to them because they, and just so everyone knows, the program, the nonprofit is called 333 Arts. And what they do is they coordinate with artists in the area of within the Bay Area, and we create murals for free. Everything's volunteer. And it's beautiful because I've just connected with so many different artists within the community that I would never have been able to. And everyone's very approachable. And so, my philosophy is that there should be art everywhere. And some cities do it well, some cities don't, because of funding and publicity regarding the need for public art. And every time I've talked to a stranger on the street when I'm in the middle of making a mural, everything's always been positive. We need this. We've always wanted a mural here, or why don't we have more of this? Those are the questions that, I've had with complete strangers on the street. And so it's definitely a need. And so being a part of 333 has enabled me to fulfill that dream and be more ingrained and a part of the community, which is really, really important, particularly during the pandemic when everyone's been so far apart. And so it's a good reminder that community is there and hungry for connection.
I love that. And that's so, you don't have to be someone, like you who is able to have that skill, that talent, have had that practice to be able to do it on a public setting. But like you said, that craving for community. And that's actually going back to Allbirds. I really felt that so much on that day that you and I met. Like the fact I messaged you, like I was already feeling that energy from that connection of being in that chat, even just from that. And that was obviously virtual, but yeah, we are all craving community. And at Running for Real here, that's definitely something we're passionate about as well. So thank you for sharing that. Although I have a selfish question about murals quickly. I've always wondered, how do you, like, I can't figure out the logistics of, like, you obviously must like draw an outline of things first, right? And then fill them in. But like, how do you do the scale end of it? Because you obviously can't see the whole thing
right
when you're working on it. So like, just tell me, humor me with filling me in, because I've always wondered about that.
Oh yeah, of course. Different artists approach it differently. The way that I do it is probably not the most economic, which is why it takes so long. But I literally draw everything out with pencil, and I'm at
on the wall.
On the wall.
Oh wow. Okay.
But there gets to a point where you're just like, all right, I need to speed this up. So then you outline it in a light color.
Do you outline it and then do you keep stepping back? Or
yes, you step back a lot to get perspective, to make sure that proportions are right. And a lot of ways that artists do it, a faster way is to kind of spray paint or quickly paint the outline, and then they can make adjustments with a light color paint so that they can paint over it without it coming through on the finished product. And so you kind of erase in a way with more paint. So you can fix your lines with that light color and then make your final outline in a darker color so you know where to follow. And in terms of proportions, it's really just about practice. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get with trusting yourself, that the lines that you're doing will be accurate. And another thing, quickly.
No, go for it. It's fascinating.
The great thing about painting is that you can always paint over it to fix it. It's something that I have to remember is it's really easy to fix mistakes. It's so easy. Just get over it.
Thank you to Allbirds for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. And friends, I've been telling you a lot about what Allbirds stands for, how they want to just do things better for the environment, just making improvements on what has already been done. They're very, very into collaboration, as I told you about a few weeks ago, with their collaboration with Adidas to make a 2.94 kilogram carbon shoe that is the lowest running shoe in terms of carbon footprint ever. By far, by a long way, only second probably to Allbirds' other shoes. And I've been telling you a lot about what they stand for, what the materials are, and just a lot about the details of the company. But today I wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the products that I really am enjoying. I don't buy things excessively. I don't have a lot of extras, but there are certain things that I love and I'm really, really enjoying using. The first is the women's R&R hoodie. It is this French terry hoodie. It's really comfortable. It is warm, surprisingly warm, actually. It is soft. It works year round, which I absolutely love. And that has been one of my go-to things. I also have the R&R sweatshirt, which I wear quite a lot, although it is white. So I have had to wash it quite a few times because I do have young kids, but it washes up nicely and is just wonderful for when I'm feeling the need to go out in the world in more than just sweatpants. I have a lot of the long sleeve tees. They have such nice, earthy, warming, comforting colors in those long sleeve tees and the short sleeve tees, actually, for that matter. They keep you warm. They are soft. They have an odor reducing material and lots of other features. So those are three of the things I just wanted to mention today that aren't running things specifically, but they are just comfort. I'm wearing them constantly and just wanted to tell you a little bit about that. So you can go to allbirds.com to go check those out. Make sure that you let them know that you came from me. If you do happen to get anything and you share it on social, that would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much again to Allbirds for working with us in this episode. Yeah, it's so, it's so beautiful, but I just always it's like exploded my mind trying to think about, I lived in Lexington, Kentucky before this, and there was this beautiful mural that was I want to say it was 6 or 8 stories high. And I just could not figure out how you could possibly wrap your brain around how much to go before angles. And so, yeah, I've always wondered that. So thank you for entertaining me by answering that. And let's take a sharp right and talk a little bit about your running before we go back into the art, just for the sake of this being a running podcast. Now, you grew up playing competitive soccer at an intense club level, as you said, but you also ran for fun in your high school team. Also, you played for fun on your soccer on your high school team. Did you thrive on that pressure at the time, or that intensity? I mean, you mentioning your background, and obviously, we talked a lot on this podcast about how a lot of children are made to feel like they have to be successful, they have to achieve, they have to kind of make it worthwhile for family, that time spent. So tell us about your relationship with exercise, with soccer, with sport, with running, if that was something you were aware of at the time as a teenager.
So for me, the way that I approached soccer was fun always has to come first. I'm also very competitive. Mm-hmm. So there's that, but I had a lot of fun, and the reason why I enjoyed soccer so much was because of the community of women on my team. It wasn't individualist. It was very team focused, and everyone had their strengths. The position that I enjoyed the most had the most running, which was midfield. And the reason why I liked that was because I could control the game and help facilitate how certain plays were run. And, that also has translated into my job, where I'm more than willing to help people if they need it. I'll drop what I'm doing to go fix things or teach someone something. But in terms of soccer or running, so because I had so much running in either high school or competitive soccer or competitive club soccer, I would have to stay in shape. And so that meant running in the neighborhood or running on the track. I will say I did not like the beep test.
Does anyone? I don't even think I struggled to find someone who did like that.
Yeah, I don't think that I was suited for the types of running where you had to meet an expectation. That really didn't sit well with me. I very much enjoyed the free running where, you could take your time. It was really just about endurance rather than having to be the best. It was more about the flexibility of what you could do. And so that's why I really liked soccer at the time, was the teamwork, the community, and just feeling like I could go wherever with running.
Yeah, I played field hockey, which is a bit different in the UK to what it is over here. I played it. Maybe it was midfield. It was basically the same position, and I loved that too as well, because I loved that I could, it was all about running and getting to the ball faster, and I didn't have to be particularly skilled at hitting it in. I was just kind of like the support person there that could go get the ball and chase after it. So I definitely felt very much a similar thing when I played that. But for you, so after you did the soccer, you continued to have running in your life, and it became kind of a means of staying in shape, and then it evolved into a sense of freedom. I'd love to hear you talk about what you mean by that sense of freedom. I mean, you mentioned a little bit about, exploring through the neighborhoods, but what do you mean by that?
Well, okay, so after college, I moved to Santa Cruz, California, which is on the coast, south of San Francisco. And I didn't have that community that I was looking for, because it was, one, very different, and two, it was a new place. And I needed an activity to do after work. And through college, it was harder to have that exercise community because of college just being a hard time for everyone. I still, exercise, I still worked out, but it was just in a different way. But after college, running through the neighborhood felt like I had more control of my situation, and I didn't feel alone. And it also allowed me to explore. It allowed me to, in my head, go on an adventure and really feel like I could do whatever. I could be whoever.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most people listening know that feeling well, and I love hearing with people the evolution of getting to that point I think for most people with the society we live in, at some point it becomes about staying in shape, and then it evolves beyond that as you realize what else it gives you beyond that. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And then we already talked about, the pandemic kind of messed with things a little bit, but with your evolution of running and how it's how it's grown. You did your first 10K, and that obviously meant a lot for you to be able to do that. I'd love to hear about where you hope it's going to go in the coming years, and what you hope running will continue to be for you.
Yeah. I'm super inspired by people who do a lot of marathons, and that's always been my goal, is to complete my first marathon. And that was going to be my next step after my 10K, but shelter in place. Yeah. But when I did the 10K, I did it with my friend who had more experience in running, had completed marathons before. And it was funny because it was a lot of positive reinforcement during that run. I'll say it was hard because it was the first time I ran that long.
Yeah.
And I had worked up to building my endurance to succeed at the run. And I actually got first place for my age group.
Wow. That's That's quite the outcome for a first 10K.
It was a lot of positive reinforcement. And so the next step for me was to build up to, get to that marathon fitness readiness. And so that's still my goal, is to complete my first marathon. So really the time being is becoming more acclimated to my routine of running and remembering, what it meant to me before the pandemic, and remembering that it's always there. And I shouldn't put so much pressure, like what you were saying about like a pressure of like needing and feeling that I have to be doing these things every single day.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. Well, and especially if you did have success like that in that first 10K, that immediately puts that on you of like, well, I've set the bar now. So it is going to be tough to not get sucked into that as you go. And I'd love to hear, have you seen any synergies between your art, your passions and running? Like those of us those who listen to this show and who have been involved in the running community a long time, we always say, oh, it's just like running. It's another running analogy. Have you felt that yourself?
Actually, yeah. I think the relationship between art, running, and whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish, something that I always say to myself is at least try, or at least do it. Like for art, I will sit in front of a canvas for hours because I'm trying to decide between this color or that color or this thing for symbolism. And, I'm not necessarily wasting time, but the whole thing about I can always fix it. I can always paint over it if I don't like it.
Yeah.
At least doing it is what matters. Is like, at least I tried something. And so for running, it's remembering that I might not do the distance that I had wanted to do that day, but at least I did something.
Yeah.
It wasn't, and it's funny because something that really changed my frame of mind was my brother, him saying like, don't have any 0 days. That doesn't mean like, doing something crazy or like, running a marathon. It just means like, at least you tried something that day. And like, you should feel proud of yourself for at least doing one thing.
Yeah, that's so true. And I'm curious with having your art displayed in an exhibit. Did that situation, that experience, remind you in any way of that experience of lining up for that race? Like the nervousness. I've always wondered if it's the same kind of nervous but excitement, but like, let's see what I can do here. Yeah,
definitely. It was a lot of, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah.
When I was, waiting for the start to go at the 10K, I was in the back. I was at the very back because I was talking to my friend and I'm like, maybe this isn't a good idea. And, a lot of like, I don't know about this. But once you're actually doing it and once you're feeling the moment, it's a good reminder that, you can accomplish so much more.
Yes, so true, so true. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so I do want to dive back into your art. Now, one thing, when I was reading and when I saw through your Instagram that you enjoy drawing hands, like that's your kind of passion area. At first I was like, that reminds me of Titanic, of Jack Dawson. And I was like, am I remembering that wrong? And then I went and looked it up, and he did say that he loved this woman's hands that he was drawing.
Thought about that.
Yeah. So like, I actually went and like looked it up, but yeah, so she's talking, Kate was talking, not Kate, what was her name? Rose was talking about the prostitute that he had been drawing. You've drawn her many times. And then he said, and you must have had a love. See, I know this movie so well. She said you must have had a love affair with her, and he went, only with her hands. So like, I know that obviously that's not relevant, but that's what came to mind when I saw that. And so he did. Jack Dawson was liked hands as well. Which
I totally forgot about that scene, but I can relate to it.
Yeah. So, and that's what I mean. I thought you would be like, oh yeah, like I do see those hands. Those are special hands. And that's probably a relief for you to hear that, rather than, I don't know if anyone's brought up like the Friends thing about Joey having a hand twin and then thinking about hands.
These are things I totally forgot about.
Those are some things that came up when I was thinking about this. But your art is absolutely beautiful, and you use it to convey vulnerability. I would love to hear about like hands. Why hands to convey vulnerability? Like, we hear about displaying vulnerability in the way that feels right to you, but what is it about hands for you?
So, I mean, okay, going back to the Jack Dawson thing.
Go for it. I could talk about Titanic all day long.
I know, but I can understand, like, I think hands are beautiful. Mm-hmm. I think they're undervalued in how they're presented. And I think there's a lot of stories you can tell from someone's hand. Like, the way that I see hands is labor. Like, there's a lot of hidden labor in people's hands, and what they've gone through in life, what they've been exposed to, or how they feel in a situation. There's a lot of things that you can tell from someone's hands, and so I don't want to make anyone self-conscious, but I do look at people's hands when I meet them, or people that I know, and I don't think anyone has ugly hands. I don't think that ugly hands exist. Everyone has their own history. And so everyone's story is unique to them. And the reason why I think hands are beautiful is because, you can have you can show age through them. You can show frustration. You can show
personality.
Personality, yeah. Hands can show personality. And so that's kind of been my approach to art is, one, hands are really enjoyable for me to draw. And I've moved away from trying to make them realistic and just make them realistic for me. Like, I'm not trying to make the best hand. That's not what's important to me. What's important to me is that the hand is getting its say. And so what I mean by like untold labor or hidden labor is, so I really like making hands out of mixed media, and particularly cardboard. And I carve it with an X-Acto knife based on my drawings. And so I'll draw a hand either directly on the cardboard or in my sketchbook, and trace that and carve it directly onto whatever material I'm using. And the reason why I use these recycled material is more of a commentary on the fact that, a lot of people who are doing these hidden labor jobs or things that are part of our society are, in a way, they're being used as like a replaceable product, where the humanity is stripped from people who are in those positions. And I use these types of materials to comment on that, and in a way show that despite the way that society may view people like me or people who are in those circumstances, they're still going about their lives. They're still trying to navigate these situations.
Thank you to Inside Tracker for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I have been working with Inside Tracker since about 2017. I have taken many tests, and I love that I can continue to track how my biomarkers are doing. I can see them at a glance. I can see them in detail. I can see what things need improvement, what things are at risk, and what are optimized. I can see that my inner age is 25, which as a 33-year-old, I know I'm not old, But as someone who's 33, having an inner age of 22 is pretty awesome. I love that I can select a goal. For me, I've actually picked overall health, but you could pick injury prevention, you could pick and recovery, you could pick stress, you could pick performance, whatever it is for you. They give you actionable things, easy things that you can do and follow along each day. For me, one of my recent ones was to stop taking my iron tablet as I was taking too much. And so that was a great reminder to me that I was overdoing it, and I could get myself feeling better by reducing my amount. And I have been feeling better since I've been doing that. They give you feature recipes that work with the things that they are recommending to you to optimize your levels. You can see some articles, you can see lots of science and videos if that is what you're interested in. And I love that it is just all in one easy place. Now, my friends, as a friend of Running for Real, you get 25% off. You won't see that offer in other places. 25% off by going to insidetracker.com/Tina. That is a special offer just for you, my friends. So go to insidetracker.com/Tina to go check it out and sign yourself up. Yes, that's beautiful. And I mean, it's kind of a perfect representation of what we talked about at the beginning with, what does art even mean? Because there's so much you could take from so many elements of art, or so many different types of looking at what is beautiful and what is not is what you see in it. And you're right that hands are definitely underappreciated, and they do show a lot about us, about our journey, yeah, it's really interesting to think about, and also something that we don't, as you said, pay enough attention to. So something to just right now be appreciative of. And as with my role in running, I'm quite often reminding people, like, be thankful for your legs. Like, yes, they may have ended up injured when you overdid it with something, but they also think about what they've carried you through. Think about
exactly.
What they do on a daily basis. And it's the same very much so with our hands. And that said, with do you say mixed media? Is that
mixed media? Yeah. Okay. So like using multiple types of materials, like paint or like pastel, cardboard, denim, leather.
Oh, yeah. So then with that, like, that's obviously something that's very niche, very like you've obviously discovered and followed your path to find what you want to do and how you want to do it. What would be your advice to someone who maybe has something of interest to them that isn't like a traditional thing to do, but they feel like a draw towards it, but they're concerned about, as unfortunately we often are, what others will think or what others will say?
I'll be totally honest with you. Like, this is still something that here and now, like, I can also struggle with and have had to push through. And, as long as you're being authentic, that's really all that matters. And being authentic to what you know and what you value, other people will see that. And, there's a lot of artists that have gone the non-traditional route with how they tell their story or tell someone else's story, or even just conveying what they're feeling that day. They're being authentic. And, when you're authentic, other people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And that's really my advice is, saying what you know and being honest about it.
And you said that you still work through that yourself. What did that look like for you, like early on?
Yeah, I mean, art can be lonely. It can definitely be lonely, especially when everyone's so separated right now. And so having that community and having people be willing to hear your perspective, because perspective is so important to art. And whether or not you have the idea behind why certain things were created or why certain decisions were made, perspective can help someone feel understood. And I think that's the power of art, where people who may not have the ability to really showcase themselves or feel like they have the power to really tell the world who they are, their art can do it for them.
Mm-hmm. And how does sustainability tie into this for you? You know, obviously you mentioned you were using materials. That's something huge rather than continuing to buy virgin materials or use virgin materials. But how has sustainability been in your life and then come into your art?
Yeah. So for my art, I use a lot of packaging material, either for my job, which I've stolen, or from my neighborhood. I'll collect cardboard and clothing that people are discarding. Like there's clothing waste is absurd. It's absurd, and people are trying to figure out what to do with this situation that we're in, where there's just landfills, water sources that are polluted with clothing. So in terms of starting small, I'm trying to use those materials that would go to landfill and incorporate them into my art. And then in my career, my job is trying to reduce the amount of water that goes into the beverage industry. And so just a bit of background, you mentioned I'm a flavor chemist. I work for a beverage company, a beverage startup in the Bay Area, and I am their product developer. And my main focus is to figure out ways for us to reduce the amount of water that's put into the beverage industry and also reduce the need of packaging those beverages. Glass waste, aluminum cans, in order to directly go into whatever your reusable container is, that will help reduce pollution and the need to create more pollution in order to make those materials.
Can you just share, you said about reducing, give us some context in terms of why, how much goes into the beverage industry? Why does it need to be reduced?
Yeah. So, let's start with a juice. Water is going to go into the agriculture of creating the plants to make a juice product.
Are you talking about like I don't even know what juices company is. A Welch's? Are you talking about that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Is that
exactly.
company Welch's? I think it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's take that as our example. Yeah. I probably shouldn't say a specific, should I?
Let's just say a commercial.
Okay, but you're talking about that kind of juice, not like an orange juice, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot that goes into the process of making something like that.
Okay.
You have your facilities that require a lot of energy and require a lot of water to even produce a single bottle of a juice. And the amount of actual amount of the water, I don't have that exact number.
Yeah.
But let's just say it's a ridiculous amount of water to make a single bottle of juice. And the production of even getting to that point, you need water to grow the plant, whatever it is, to make your juice concentrates. And you need a bunch of other materials that go into that also require water. And so the idea of my company is to remove all of that middleman part of the process, where you're removing the need to use all that unnecessary amounts of water by just making it, into a single device, so that you're using the just a minimal amount of volume.
And how does that, you mentioned at the beginning, or maybe I did, that one of the things that you're passionate about and that your company is trying to do is help to enhance accessibility to food and creates food security for people who don't currently have that. How does reducing the amount of water that goes into these drinks or the beverages, how does that help with that?
So My company's mission isn't necessarily food security.
Yes.
That's my personal mission. But their mission is the sustainability of, one, waste that goes into water, like water waste or water to create it. And the reason why reducing water is important is because we're, in a drought, at least in California. And there's a lot of things that are due to climate change around the world where water is going to become, a scarce resource for us. And to be able to sustain the growing population and also make sure that, we're not reducing quality in a beverage, we still want to be able to enjoy the things that we want to still enjoy the things that we like currently. And by reducing the amount of water that we don't necessarily need to make these things that we enjoy, we'll do less problematic practices like taking from groundwater. There's a lot of agriculture parts of the industry where they'll do a lot of illegal things to get as much water. And by doing that, they'll take away water from communities that actually need it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And, water is something that, you hear whispers of it's going to become a precious resource. It's, don't take it for granted, but then it can be hard to wrap your head around that with what we currently, the way that we view water, the way that water is involved in our lives. So I do like to bring that to our attention when I can. Now with your role there, is there anything else that you want to share with the work that you do and just what you have learned that you would like to pass on to the community, and be it about water, be it about what you do as a flavor chemist, be it in your journey, anything else that you'd like to share there?
I just say that there's a lot of things that we can do in order to fulfill what I think is important, to align with my values regarding food security, like what we were talking about. There's a lot of things that we can do to make our diet healthier and also not add to the climate crisis by either reducing the amount of water that is put into these processes so that there's enough water for people to consume. But I'm really excited to see where food science goes. I always wanted to be Willy Wonka when I was a kid. I still do.
I'll come to your factory, even if it's weird and wonderful.
Yeah, it's still a dream of mine. So check in a couple of years. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are in the process of being created that I hope help reduce the problems in our society. And obviously this is very, positive outlook on the way things are going to go, but I do have a lot of hope for it. And I think people are finally waking up that this isn't, a local problem. This is a global issue.
Yeah.
And the only way we can really move forward is if people work together globally for it.
So then, give us, before we wrap up here, give us you've talked a lot about community. For someone who is feeling a lack of that, and maybe it's that discomfort of putting themselves out there to go meet some new people. Maybe it's just the pandemic has made them into, feeling nervous about being around others. Anything you would encourage people to get involved in community, even if it's going to require maybe feeling a bit awkward or a bit uncomfortable for, while you first get started?
Yeah. So going back to my whole no zero days, one, don't put pressure on yourself to feel like you need to be something or you need to be acting a certain way. I have felt very scared and timid to leave my apartment. I still do. There's a lot of trauma that's happened for many people throughout the pandemic where, you have that fear of being outside, being around people, especially if you're interacting with family where you don't want anything, awful to happen to them. And so you're thinking about all these types of relationships. But at the same time, like, there's other people who are also feeling the same way as you. And they're also scared to meet new people. And it's okay to feel awkward. I feel awkward all the time. Like, being socially awkward, I think, is very acceptable right now because people are very understanding that we have been in a cave for the last 2 years, going into 3 years. And there has to be a lot of empathy for that. And I think if you approach it to those scenarios that are very overwhelming, people are wanting to connect, even if they feel like they're not capable. So as long as you're thinking actively about wanting to connect, I think that's a good first step.
That's such good advice. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And you just sharing all the other elements of your life and, how much running means to you. And we look forward to cheering you on in that first marathon when it comes. So where can people go find you, go follow along with you in the future?
Yeah. So I have an Instagram. My name is kind of funny, but I didn't know what to name myself. This was also a pandemic creations, but my Instagram name is Hands for Your Mama, HANDS 4 YOMAMA. And that's just more of like my Oaklandness.
That's okay. Be you, right? That's what we were talking about. Be authentically you. Yeah. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes, and they can also go check out your website if you want to share that.
Yeah, they can check out my website. And then, if you ever feel like reaching out to me, I'm very approachable. If you have any questions about, art, getting into art, or even science, more than welcome to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. I appreciate, your vulnerability and look forward to following and getting to know more in the future. So thank you.
No, thank you. This has been awesome.
Hi, friends. Just a quick message to say a big thank you to the Running for Real team. While I may be the face of Running for Real and the voice behind the podcast, there are a group of people who are working tirelessly to provide everything that runners could need within our community to make our community stronger, better, and evolve and grow and learn from one another. We are working really hard to make Running for Real the place we believe it can be within our community. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone on our team. That is Victoria, Stacy, Sandy, Sally, Maria, Kelsey, Kat, Jeremy, and Erica. I appreciate each and every one of you and the hard work that you put in. Now let's get back to the show. So thankful to Callan for joining us. I really enjoyed that one. I hope you did too. What a wonderful human and someone I'm really excited to get to see in the future. I loved her perspective on, doing what your heart feels that it wants to do. And also the fact that she feels so comfortably herself in her artwork. And I love that she has found ways to make it sustainably sourced, and she's also found ways to make it her own. I just thought that was really beautiful, and what she's able to take from her hand art, what it means, what the hands show, which is so true. I really enjoyed that one. I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. You can find links to everything we talked about today in the show notes and our sponsor links by going to runningforreal.com/episode 288. And our sponsors are, of course, Allbirds. Thank you so much to Allbirds for supporting myself and Callan and the running community. You can go to allbirds.com to go check out what they are up to. Inside Tracker for keeping on top of your health, how you're looking from the inside rather than looking at metrics like weight or BMI that don't really mean anything. You can go to insidetracker.com/Tina to get 25% off there. And thank you to Athletic Greens for also sponsoring this episode, keeping me feeling strong, feeling healthy, my immune system just ready to go for whatever comes its way. You can get a 1-year free supply of vitamin D, which is crucial with what we are going through right now. Vitamin D is a really, really powerful tool we have to help us prepare for whatever is going around at the moment. And you can get a 1-year free supply by going to aestheticgreens.com/Tina, and you'll also get 5 free travel packs for that. Okay, my friends, thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week.